Have you been wondering about Gallagher's true identity? I mean, if Gallagher is a lie constructed from traits of 52 members of the family, then who is he, really? Or if Mikhail is the watchmaker and the name Misha is the nickname for Mikhail, then why did Trailblazer hear Misha's voice calling out to Mikhail in a child's dream? Or perhaps, how come Misha has voiceovers about Gallagher when nobody else seems to know who Gallagher is? And vice versa when nobody aside from Clocky and Trailblazer can see Misha? Well, I believe I have the answers. And it all started with a little hint from Gallagher that fiction took inspiration from reality. I will go over my speculations on Gallagher's identity and what he meant when he said he was one of the watchmaker's children, Misha's identity and his connection to the watchmaker, as well as the connection between Gallagher and Misha and how it all ties back to Tiernan and Legwork, two of the nameless who stayed behind in Penacony. And just before we dive in, disclaimer. This is just a theory and not indicative of the final product in the game. Discussion is welcome, but do refrain yourself from posting spoilers and leaked stuff, otherwise you'll be sent to the memory zone. Now, before we start figuring out Gallagher's identity, or Misha's, let me draw your attention to the three nameless that Himiko mentioned at the start of Penacony Trollbase mission. They were Tiernan, a god of the express, Legwork the mechanic, and Rosalina the surveyor. No additional records were known about the three, and March suggested that those might not even be their real names. Then Himiko revealed that there was a hidden message in the invitation that she received, which basically screamed nameless all over, proving a closer connection between Penacony and the nameless than what was originally presented. If we can just figure out who those three nameless are, perhaps we can figure out the answer to the question, why does life slumber? So if we're gonna do that, the first step is to look at the family, because according to Databank, rather than blood relatives, the family is more like a gathering of beings from different worlds who came together and sought refuge under Shipei the Harmony. During the rebellion to fight for Penacony's freedom from the IPC, the Nameless was listed as one of the many factions involved, so it makes sense that eventually the three Nameless would be part of the family once Shipei descended. Tiernan and Rosalina are the easiest to figure out. They are the guard and the surveyor of the Express respectively, and there are two families that immediately stand out when we have that in mind, the Bloodhound and the Nightingale family. The Bloodhound family is in charge of security in Penacony. They are the guards of Penacony. Meanwhile, a surveyor is someone responsible to guide construction, to measure the dimension of land, to make maps, and overall an important figure when planning new buildings. And that pretty much sums up the role of the Nightingale family too. And if we take Gallagher's word for it that fiction took inspiration from reality, we can also locate Tiernan and Rosalina within the story of Hanu's adventure. Rosalina could be Professor Awo, a character who was known for his knowledge and invention and was responsible for building the Dreamville. In the story, origami birds were said to be his students, and it might refer to the Dreamers, the dream architects employed by the Nightingale family. While Tiernan could be Hanunu, whose fictional self was the protagonist of Hanu's adventure, while his non-fictional self was known as the head of the Bloodhounds. And we might already know what Tiernan and Rosalina look like. This is a picture of two unknown NPCs from Star Rail first anniversary web event with nameless badges in the background and on their person. The lady is Rosalina, hinted by the parchments that she's carrying because, surveying lands and all that. Meanwhile, the guy holding the gun is Tiernan. So knowing this, the fact that Tiernan carried around a gun, particularly a revolver as his weapon, I think Tiernan is also Captain Revolver, a character mentioned in the Clocky and Mirror Princess book. Rosalina might as well be the Mirror Princess in this story for no other reason than the fact that there is a mention of Clocky traveling alongside Mirror Princess and Captain Revolver, of how they had explored countless enchanting places but none could compare to Dreamville. Which to me sounds a lot like the Nameless who had visited countless planets before eventually fallen for the beauty of Penacony and decided to call it their home. Rosalina and Tiernan are easy to figure out, but what about Legwork? Did you know that we got this item called Trailblaze Timer once we completed part 1 and 2 of the Trial of the Equilibrium? Yeah, this item can be used to permanently increase maximum technique points in the game. I didn't know that. I thought the maximum had always been 5 until I created a new account the other day and saw that I only had 3 technique points to start with, but that's not the point. Point is, Legwork is mentioned in the description of this item. Take it, Legwork. It's yours now. Then continue onwards. Somebody gave this relic to Legwork at one point in time and that it might have been a compass or a pocket watch. Interesting. If only we have a character in Penacony that is closely related to watches and is believed to also be a nameless. No, yeah, we do, don't we? It's the watchmaker himself, the father of Penacony. In the Watchmaker Master of Dream Machinations relic set, it is said that the reason the Watchmaker is called the Watchmaker is the biggest puzzle in the serialized story. Some say he was once a craftsman at a clock tower, a merchant who sold timepieces. Some even say that his head is shaped like a watch face, just like Clocky, which he created. But what if it is as simple as the fact that he carried around this nameless relic because it was given to him by an old friend and he was holding onto it like a memory that he refused to let go? In the same relic set, it is suggested that the Watchmaker has mechanical knowledge, hence the Master of Dream Machinations title. And in 2.1, it is revealed that the name of the Watchmaker is Mikhail and that he is a trader of the family. There is much to unpack about the trader bit, which could be a whole ass video by itself, so I'm gonna focus on the first part for now. Mikhail is the Watchmaker. He is Legwork, the third nameless who stayed in Penacony. Mikhail itself is the name that was first heard when Trailblazer was entering the dreamscape. Somebody was calling out to him, and later in a child's dream, the voice could be heard more clearly and likely belonged to Misha. By this point, I'm sure you're familiar with the theory about Mikhail being Misha's grandpa, the one who has given him the nameless badge in the inedible Promised Light Cone and has left Penacony afterwards. The same theory suggests that it is from his grandfather that Misha has learned how to fix clocks. Seems legit. Misha does mention his grandpa in some voice lines and character stories of his, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because I would like to propose a different theory. Misha is not Mikhail's grandson. Misha is Mikhail, created by Mikhail to keep himself company. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but don't click off the video just yet. I will walk you through this nonsense and soon it will make sense, I promise. And what better way to understand it than to look at Gallagher and the truth of his identity? No, that was not an excuse to talk about a different topic. It's very closely related, actually. Gallagher and Misha, Hanunu and Mikhail, Tiernan and Legwork, it will all make sense later, I promise. Now, earlier, I mentioned that Tiernan is the inspiration behind Brother Hanu, one of Clocky's friends in the Dreamville. His real-life counterpart is Hanunu and is likely Tiernan's real name. In Hanu's adventure, it is repeatedly mentioned that Brother Hanu is a wolf. And we can't see as much when we play the Hanu minigames, right? What's with the fangs, the pointy ears, and all that. This picture from the same anniversary webbed event is probably what Hanunu looks like. I also mentioned that Rosalina could be Professor Owl in the story, but what's interesting with Hanunu is that in the story, not once does he talk. Every time somebody talks to him, he only responds as a grunt, different in flavor depending on the situation. While Rosalina being an owl might just be an adjustment to fit with the cartoon setting, it seems like Hanunu, the real-life counterpart of Brother Hanu, is a literal wolf. And we do have a race of wolf that is known to be able to shapeshift, don't we? Borisyn, a humanoid species from the denizens' abundance. Borisyn is said to have a great healing ability as well as the ability to shapeshift, known as Moon Madness. So it is my theory that Tiernan is of Borisyn origin, and at one point in time, he decided to board the Express in his human form as Hanunu and become a nameless. Or this all could be a joke and the only reason Tiernan took a wolf form in the Dreamville was because anyone could take whatever form they wanted once in the dream. Either way, other than the heavy mention of him being a guard, there is a lot of wolf symbolism going on with Hanunu. And if we look at Gallagher and consider what he said about the family breaking his spine and removing his fangs, he also has a lot of that wolf symbolism going on with him. Plus, when he was younger, he said he was a little terror who bit anyone in sight. Insert growling noises here? While Gallagher has been his most genuine lie, sometimes he would reminisce about the golden years when he yearned for freedom despite his captivity, fighting against oppression, dreaming of a free land. Not unlike Hanunu, who started the rebellion against the IPC. And if we take another look, a closer look this time at the picture of the two nameless earlier, of Rosalina and Tiernan, doesn't that guy look like Gallagher to you? So what am I saying? Tiernan equals Hanunu equals Gallagher? Yes and no. I think Gallagher looks similar to Tiernan/Hanunu because he was created in the image of him. He is not the original Tiernan because in Hanu's adventure, it is implied that Hanunu sacrificed himself and died during the rebellion. The real Hanunu is dead. From Cosmic Star and the Trees at Peace adventure missions, we know that people can be recreated in a dreamscape. Leslie didn't. He died in a galactical accident and his fans, unable to let go of him, came together to reconstruct him in the dreamscape. Caldron Chadwick, his consciousness was extracted from his brain by the IPC at the moment of his death and put in a dreamscape with the family's supervision. So it's not entirely impossible. Plus, we have never met Gallagher in reality. all of our encounters with him have always been in a dreamscape, almost as if he is bound to the dreamscape, just like both Leslie Dean and Calderon Chadwick were. If this theory is correct, then this could explain what Gallagher meant when he said that he was one of the Watchmaker's children. The Watchmaker, Mikhail, was the one who created him in the image of his fallen friend. Perhaps Tiernan was the owner of the Trailblaze timer, and he gave it to Mikhail before he went on his suicide mission. Just like the Trailblaze timer that he could not let go, Mikhail was also unable to let go of his dead friend's memory. Besides, if Mikhail participated in the rebellion alongside Hanunu and Gallagher was the real Hanunu, it's kind of weird to be calling your brother-in-arms your child, no? Just as weird as this unnamed NPC guy who had a friendship breakup with his friend after said friend accused him of fostering a culture of childlike dependence among his students. This is taken from a letter of divination that we can obtain after setting the emo dial of an NPC named Carlos to angry. The letter was written by an unnamed guy who Carl once saw as his father figure as well as mentor. Their good relationship was broken after the accusation and endless arguments, followed by the mentor expressing his relief that they had gone their separate ways. He also said good riddance to the deceitful, hypocritical, and ungrateful insect and his followers that had departed from his realm of knowledge. At first, this sounds like any other petty person out there who's all about admiration, fame, and authority, but when combined with what Carl wrote in response, something that you can obtain by setting Carl's emo dial to set, this got a bit more interesting. Carl said he once regarded the mentor with blinded admiration and affection. He said the mentor sat on the father's chair to exert pressure on everyone, and he got unconditional admiration, flattery, and praise in return. And all that was an outward display of his pathological dependency. Carl believed that he was not the only friend who had distanced himself from the mentor, and that the mentor did not seek friends, but rather compliant children who lacked independent opinions. Now get this, the mentor was a scholar in the field of dreams and psychology. And in the end, Carl had no chance to mend his friendship with the mentor because the mentor had passed away. Surely I'm not saying that this mentor is literally the Watchmaker and Gallagher is Carl, and in the end the Watchmaker developed a spiritual complex after the creation of his children, and that he and Gallagher had a friendship breakup towards the end of his life, but Hoyo has their ways of telling one story to be an analogy for another, right? Remember what Gallagher said about him being a traitor to the Watchmaker? About him not doing anything when the Watchmaker was shunned away by the family or something along that line? Well, what if that happened when they were in their friendship breakup phase, and it's not that Gallagher didn't do anything because he didn't want to, but because he didn't even know about it. In the end, he only heard that the Watchmaker died in obscurity. He didn't know it for sure. And what if the realm of knowledge that the mentor was referring to was the real Penacony that is on the other side, and the ungrateful insect and his followers is Shippe and the family who shut him out and built the barrier of the dreamscape? I know, a very crazy theory, but bear with me just a little bit more because now we're back to talking about Misha. Gallagher said that somebody else had inherited the Watchmaker title and now had been working against the family. He didn't know who it was or whether it was simply the lost soul of the Watchmaker. Now, I don't think Misha is the one who inherited the title. I think somebody else did because, as I've said earlier, Misha is Mikhail. And you might be wondering, how is that even possible? Well, it is possible with the power of the a feeling of despair and loneliness and the abundance of memoria in the dreamscape. See, if you've come across a dreamscape motivator called Ran, you would find a letter of complaint next to her on the bench that detailed her uncomfortable experience with one of her patients in the dreamscape. The patient shared that he had never had any friends, leading to his feeling of loneliness and helplessness. Soon he developed a new persona to keep himself company. Now, combine this with my theory about Mikhail having a friendship breakup with Gallagher and everyone else leaving him behind, we're left with a Watchmaker who was all by himself, probably desperate to have somebody to keep himself company, toying with the idea of creation but not of somebody else because we know how well that went with Gallagher, but instead of another version of himself. A compliant child was not enough, he created a grandchild instead. I mean, doesn't that bother you? Why is Misha looking for his grandpa? Why is it a grandpa specifically? Where are his parents? And if you think it doesn't make sense for Misha to be calling out for himself in a child's dream, remember, Kakavasha was there in a dreamscape with a Venturin. Now let's look at Misha's splash art. When you look at it for the first time, which Genshin character does he remind you of, if you play the game at all? To me, it's Furina. If you are familiar with the story, major Fountain Archon quest spoiler by the way, Furina is the human side of the Hydro Archon who was separated by her own divinity, Fuselors, to play the part of an Archon in order to fool Celestia. She is in every way a human, missing her divinity and the full knowledge of her identity as an Archon. So it wouldn't be much of a surprise if her variant in Star Rail, Misha, a diminutive of Mikael, is missing the madness and the full knowledge of his identity as the Watchmaker. And what is the lore behind Inedible Promise again? Misha was entrusted with something as to guard this place and he promised to do exactly that? Sounds a lot like Furina, who was entrusted with a mission to be an Archon for the sake of keeping the people of Fontaine safe to me. And this is why Gallagher and Misha have voiceovers about each other when nobody else seems to have one about them. They are a product of the dreamscape and they can see each other. Oh, that's funny because everyone can see Gallagher too. The crew talked to him in the 2.1 quest. Well, I'm glad you pointed out because I think the creation of Misha was of a different manner than that of Gallagher. While Gallagher might have followed the same process as Leslie Dean, one that would result in something more, realistic, perhaps Misha was created in the same way Cloaky was created. Something more Stellaron-induced, perhaps? And that is why only Trailblazer could see him, just like how Trailblazer was the only one who could see Cloaky. I mean, Cloaky listed Misha down along with his cartoon friends when he talked about those who helped him protect the Dreamville. Misha is one of them. And now I will take my exit with this last mini theory that I couldn't really fit in any sections of this video. Did you know about the secret ending that we could get if we chose not to team up with Aventrin at the end of 2.0 quest? As the credits roll, except for Sparkle and Robin and Sunday, only question mark is credited to be playing every character, just like March was in the secret ending back in 1.0. Considering the one credited to play Welt Yang is Welt's real name before he changed it in Honkai Impact, I think the question mark doesn't mean that everyone in Penacony is Sparkle at one point in time, but rather the name that they're known for in Penacony is not their real name. We know March named herself after the date she was found by the Astral Express, Ekron is not Ekron's real name, neither is Black Swan, Aventrin is Kakavasha, Firefly is Sam, Sam is Firefly, Gallagher is also not his real name, going by my theory it's actually Hanunu, and Misha is Mikael. Alrighty, that's the end of the video. It has been a long one. I don't know if you guys even watched till the end, but regardless, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.